Hello, I am so pleased today to be speaking with Carob Marcelle and with Christine Sefein Wolk. And we've done these, I don't know how many we've done of these so far. So if anybody's interested in catching up, if you're new to the channel and want to catch up on our conversations, we've had quite a few together. So please feel free to go back and browse. We usually do these as live streams, but today I kind of screwed up my own scheduling and I have a video premiering on my channel at the same time. So I didn't want to live stream and have a video going up at the same time. So I thought we'd have a recorded chat, and that means we miss out on the comments that come through. So thank you all for always being there in the live chat. Those are great to get your feedback, but please comment under the video. We always read them. And it's really nice to see you ladies today. How is everything going with y'all?
You too.
Good. Yeah.
Carrie, you're
Good
in the
both
middle
of you.
of something big. You're running for state school board in Utah.
I am. And that's pure craziness. You would
Yeah.
expect in Utah for it to be a nothing burger, but
Not anymore.
not anymore. Nope.
Wow.
You're coming to the end of your campaign.
Yes, it ends next Tuesday. So it ends on the 25th.
Yeah.
And somebody who's running for Congress, Jason Walton, who has an amazing story about DEI and its insanity.
Mhm.
He just offered to let us do our victory / we aren't quitting party there. So we'll see which way it goes.
That's
Mm.
great. He's running for Congress for the state or
Yeah, no. Yeah, for the state.
for the state of Utah. Yeah.
Right. And he is just not a politician. So if you remember a couple of years ago when Utah Duke College said that somebody was racist at a BYU game.
Not really.
Well, the governor came out and told him that he said, we don't have room for racist a-holes in Utah.
Oh,
Come to
so they
find
made
out.
a big stink about it.
Wow.
What was the incident? Was it just yelling something?
Well,
or-
what they said was that he was saying the N-word.
Okay.
Come to find out that this is a special needs young man.
Oh.
And he wasn't saying anything.
Oh.
And the
my gosh.
whole school, and there was proof immediately. And they all covered it up because they wanted to look like this was a moment for Utah to stand up for DEI. And the girl who accused him, her aunt or godmother or something was running for office in another state. So
oh my gosh.
he was just like, you know what? I'm done with this. And sadly, a year before, his daughter had committed suicide.
Oh my gosh.
At the same school. So, and it was covered up.
Oh, wow.
So it has been interesting to listen to these stories and to know that people are involved because they're absolutely sick of it, not because they're lifelong politicians. And so what we have right now is a battle between the lifelong politicians and the everyday people. He's not really everyday. I mean, he's a millionaire many times over, but just people who've never cared about politics, who are just like, leave us alone. Just leave us alone. And for me, it's like, leave our kids alone. You have no right to do this to our children. So that's what it's been like.
Well, I imagine you're going to have a lot of stories to tell when this is over. I hope you're running a victory lap soon.
Yes.
Do I have some stories that you just have to sit and hold on until the end. But I will say that religious compliance has been insane.
Religious compliance.
So the person I'm running against is what's called a stake patriarch.
A state patriarch? Okay.
Stake patriarch.
Stake. Okay. Stake. What does that mean?
A stake is multiple different churches, what's called a ward. So a ward is your neighborhood church. The stake is more of those, like maybe a district, or maybe in Utah, that's like half a district, right? Because it's Utah. But the stake patriarch is the wise old grandfather figure who's over all of that, and that's who I'm running against. So it's interesting. I will hear that at his, it's all Utah words. So a cottage meeting is when you meet with people and you discuss your ideas and you try to get them to vote for you, and they can ask you any questions.
Is that like a town hall? That's
Like
kind
a
of like a
town
town
hall.
hall.
Yeah, it's like a town hall. A town hall is a little bit more formal in that you're kind of guiding what's happening. In mine, you guys, I've been accused of bomb threats towards children. I mean, it has been utterly insane. Um, and it might work.
Hmm.
So I've had people call me and do recordings, or they hit a recording and it's Hitler's Third Reich message.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Yeah, like nonstop. And you just sit there going, well, that's what activists do, right?
Well, when they
So-
don't want to engage with you on the substance of the issues, they engage with you on character assassination and reputation
And
attacks.
that's actually one of the things that happened is someone had slandered me. And I said, you're dangerously close to libel here,
Mhm.
dangerously close. And they reached out to a friend and vented. And the friend actually ended up joining our team. Like when she called me and got the truth, she ended up joining our team.
Mhm.
And then she was like, when she was talking to the other person, the person said, but if I'm not slandering her, then I've got nothing. And I think that tells you everything you need to know. If
Yeah.
a campaign is based on nothing but slander of someone else,
Mm.
then you don't really have good ideas. But you don't have to have good ideas when there's religious compliance. When people send out messages and say, I've known such and such for so long, and he's such a nice fellow.
Mhm.
And it's like, so people will sacrifice their children
Mhm.
because it's literally what's happening. Not, not blood sacrifice, but we can dig into what it is.
Mhm.
And they'll sacrifice their kids because someone tells them to.
Mhm.
Because someone says don't ask questions. What's really crazy about this person is that he teaches music,
Mhm.
or he used to be a professor of music at BYU. And so he won't even say anything. He'll just play the piano.
Hmm.
And that's a campaign strategy. And you just go, how? How? These are your kids on the line. How is that valid?
Mhm.
So that's what it's been like.
Mhm.
And then I've found people who I've been able to share yours, and Christine, your podcast has been amazing because, believe it or not, the transgender issue is big in Utah. Big.
Yeah.
And so I get these parents who will call me and they've been told that I'm hateful, I'm this, I'm that. And they won't tell me anything. They'll just talk to me. And then in the end, they'll be like, well, I have to tell you, I was kind of testing you.
Mhm.
And I was expecting you to be this, and you're not. Can I join your team?
Interesting.
then
So
they're
they're
like-
testing you to see which side you're on, really?
Yeah. So it's Utah, family
Hmm.
friendly, traditional value state, but they want to know where I stand on the issue of quote unquote protecting the most marginalized.
Mhm. Mhm.
And my response is always the most marginalized is the child who needs help at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mhm.
Whoever that kid is. That
Mhm.
does not mean that it's the child in this group or the child in this group. It just means who needs help at that moment.
Mhm.
That's, I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
it's such common sense, but they really, really want you to be focused on that issue. Gender is the end all be all, which is
Well, it's a huge issue right now. It seems like when I first encountered the social justice cult perspective, ideology, whatever, a few years back, I most of what I was seeing was around race,
Mhm.
but gender has quickly eclipsed that. And now
Right.
it's all gender all the time. And I would love to talk to you about pride, but I know you said you kind of want to wait and you have some things you want to talk about after your campaign is over, because you'll be able to be a little more free in your descriptions. But I am so disturbed by how much of this we're seeing, how much of this propaganda we're seeing. A friend of mine, her daughter was just threatened with permanent expulsion from the library because she dumped a bunch of pride flags. She's a 12-year-old kid. She dumped a bunch of pride flags into the trash and turned the books over on the display. She didn't want to see the pride display. She was left at you're allowed to leave kids at the library alone after age 10. They can be in there look, and so this wasn't like her mom telling her to do this. In fact, her mom was upset she did it. Her mom was not encouraging her to do this, but here's a kid who is responding to what, even at 12, she can see this as an anti-family movement. This is something she's uncomfortable with. And to get kind of hauled off and yelled at by the librarian for this, it's interesting how much of this propaganda we're seeing. And I think it's time to call it out for what it is. We've got to rebrand this thing. Pride is a bad enough brand, but they've managed to disguise it in rainbows. But
Right.
it's really like a recreational sex cult.
Yeah, and I have something to say in general about religion and, the gay and lesbian community and all of that, because I grew up in a Catholic high school.
Mhm.
So we went to mass like once a month or so, wasn't very often, but we're a Catholic high school. We had religious studies and all of that. And we had a gay and lesbian group on campus. This is like 20 years ago or more.
Mhm.
And they were just left alone. They had their group. If you wanted to join it, you joined it. If you didn't, you didn't. And that was it, just like every other group on campus. They went to the prom together. We had same-sex couples going to the prom together. Not a big deal. Nobody batted an eye, and it was perfectly fine. And that's where the
Mhm.
craziness, right, of all of this is something that's very hard for me to understand. How did we get here? Because
Mhm. Mhm.
there was a time, not too long, I guess 20 years is a long time. It's all relative though, where these things were not the same kind of issue as they are today, and they
No,
still existed.
right.
And they existed at a religious school. So people that say it's the far right Christians who are homophobic, that is an inaccurate statement to use as an umbrella statement about who's homophobic and who's not. Growing up in that faith, we weren't homophobic at all. They didn't get teased, they didn't get bullied, they didn't get looked at funny. People
Mhm.
just knew who they were, and that was kind of it. That was it. They weren't interested in who's gonna, be at the football game or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's where it's I've seen religion and the religious, mentality and welcome, those groups without there being a homophobic undertone, and without it being the main, what they lead with, the main, because so much of this, people are leading with this gender identity or gender ideology, and they were just treated like every other normal person. So I had a
Yeah.
very different experience of all of this.
Yeah.
And homophobia, I'm sure, existed on the campus, but it wasn't anything that we heard or even knew about. If it was there, we didn't hear about it and we didn't know about it. The stuff kids were getting in trouble for had nothing to do with that. So we've lost our way in a major significant way, and I don't know how reversible it is.
Well, that's a
I
good
think it's about
reminder.
stopping. It's
Yeah.
about stopping the bleeding, in my opinion, at this point. How do you
Yeah.
stop the bleeding from where we are today? Because I don't know that we're going to be able to pull back and unwind.
Yeah.
Um, there's a new forward. Moving forward is something new. It's going to be a different direction,
Mhm.
because we've already done all this. This will be part of the past, in a sense. So moving forward, I don't know if we know what that even looks like yet.
Well, the
But
slippery slope is a rhetorical fallacy. I mean, it's not
yes,
just because I mean, there's people who want to draw that line. What you're saying, you're describing a time in the 90s, when it would have been,
90s.
we were seeing more acceptance of gay and lesbian relationships. That was pretty open among people about our age. We were our age, Gen X, we were pretty comfortable with that among
Yeah.
our peers and our friends.
Mhm.
And just because we say as a culture allowed gay marriage to be endorsed, it doesn't follow necessarily that we'd end up where we are right now. And that's the slippery slope fallacy. I think that this is
Yes.
something I always come back to, is the concept of the virtues, Aristotle's virtues, being the balance point between the excess of something and the dearth of that thing. So you can put it on a spectrum, you can line it up on a spectrum, and that doesn't mean that what you've got that's now representing an excess of it necessarily has to follow from it. We don't have to be homophobic to have a problem with what we're seeing right
Yes.
now in this pride
Yes.
culture.
Right.
Yes.
I think what we need to realize is that people are disposable. Like you said, it started off with race, and now race is a complete non-issue. So like,
And can I raise the fact that today's Juneteenth and it's a federal holiday, which I just learned for the very first time that it
yeah,
was. And so if
yes,
we're talking about race, because that has much more to do with race than not,
yeah,
we're even celebrating now. These, you know, where's the date? You know, what day are we going to celebrate all the Middle Eastern that
right,
have come here and
Mm.
right.
left the oppressive places?
It's just
Anyway,
a
it's just
constant
a side
reminder.
note.
But I think
Mhm.
you can turn that into something positive. Like I made a post about playing Harriet and just about
Yeah.
that idea that you know, she's attributed with saying, I freed 1,000 people and I would have freed 1,000 more if they but knew they were slaves. And then I just talk about
Mm.
how we can be slaves in our minds too. When we
Yeah.
are told not to
Hmm.
question, not to ask anything, and just to do what we're
Hmm.
supposed to, we're also still slaves. That's why I feel that
Hmm.
connection when I tell her story. But so Title IX comes in on August 1st, and it really is just ticking off. Like first it gets us divided. Remember, because divided we fall. So when Title IX comes in on August 1st, if we don't stop it, 7 states are prepared to stop it. Today there is a meeting in Utah to figure out what they're going to do. But it'll be interesting because like I said, Utah is really battling for this gender thing. And I think that next week Utah could very, very likely turn blue. That's it. There's still the elections in November, but the primary decides if these grassroots candidates who people actually went around and vetted and spent hours with, if they will be elected or if it will be people who, as my son says, pay to play.
Mm.
So, but they're disposable. So the first one was minorities, right? I think had I ran 3 years ago, wouldn't have even been an issue. Everybody would have been like, oh my goodness, let me blah, 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 you know, regurgitating. Ugh. But now we're into gender.
Mm.
So, and because this 73-year-old man, or I think that's about his age, you know, is going to be, their words, not mine, welcoming to people whose families do not affirm them. You know, it's turned into that. But Title IX erases everybody. And it forces compelled speech on everybody as of August 1st. And more than that, you guys, they're literally teaching our kids to report on each other through an app. So
Are you
Mm.
kidding?
What's that?
Report
What's
on
that
each other
about?
through an app?
yeah.
Say
So
more, please.
yeah. So when you dig through, when you just look at the bullets, this is again the compliance culture. Oh, that looks fine. That looks good. Okay, well, I want my kids to be safe. So sure, sounds wonderful. But
Where
when you
is
look at it,
this? Is this through Title IX?
it's part. So
Okay.
what this is here in Utah, it's called Safe Utah. You've got Safe Ohio, Safe Portland, or Safe Oregon, but it literally says it is a toolkit for reporting for K through 12-year-old or K through 12th grade.
What? Okay, I want to look that up while you're talking about it.
I don't know if you'll be able to find it. I shared it in a link to you guys before.
Okay.
When you see the top, so it's probably in this thread somewhere. It's the Safe Reporting Toolkit, Safe Schools. Okay. Safe means obedient and compliant schools, period. And so on August 1st, when Title IX comes in, it's not just about sports. Anything that you deem to be, and I'm not joking in here, implicit or explicit bias, you should report. And then it talks about how you should make the kids feel brave and comfortable so that they're not afraid to report. And reporting should be a daily occurrence.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
What?
And so who's going to enforce this, number one? Who's going to be able to label
We're
what,
getting ourselves,
you know,
if I
where
tell, I'm
is
like,
it?
if
Where,
you show it, I don't have to say it, and that'll be
Okay.
so much better.
I'm going to share
but
this and see
You
if
found
you.
it?
Yeah, I found it. So tell me, is this what it is? Safe Utah?
No. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
This is Safe Utah, but it's not what I'm okay. Let me find it and pull it up and send it over to you.
Okay, put it in the chat.
this is crazy.
Put
So,
it in the I can't put it
who
in the chat.
defines,
Okay.
So it was You guys, this is the stuff where I'm like, I gotta be careful.
And what's the consequence, and who's in charge of the consequence and responsible
All
for
right,
that?
you
And
guys,
what
you want to
happened
know?
to hearing
I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you.
what
Well,
happened
I'd
to
rather
hearing
just
both sides before making a decision, or some kind of conflict resolution type of skill set, rather than this anonymous I mean, the person's going to be demonized, whoever is reported, for something that could have been very benign, or of course not meant with ill intent.
right.
I
Well,
mean,
and
it's
that's the thing. Like,
problematic in
why
a lot
isn't
of
it local?
ways.
That's my issue, is why isn't it local? I tell the story about these little boys who were on a merry-go-round. And I might have said this before in our group, but they're all 3 blonde boys with blue eyes. And they say, only boys with blonde hair and blue eyes can play on the merry-go-round. And I'm out at recess. And so a child comes up to me and is like, Mrs. B, they did this to me. And so I just walk over to them and I said, hey guys, can I play? And they're like, sure. And I said, but here's a question. I don't have blonde hair or blue eyes. That's okay, you're cool. Well, can't we all be cool? And there it was. And then they played and it was fine. It did not need to become this massive intervention of, oh my gosh, these 6-year-olds are racist, right? That's how we change things. We start teaching our kids that anybody who offends you at all. And I have been called by a huge group. They put it out to all teachers, and they called me a far right extremist who was dangerous to be around kids.
Of course.
Right? And I'm sitting there going, how does that even work? Like, that's just not a thing. Shoot. Okay. Can't remember.
It's okay if you can't find it. I don't want to belabor it.
I'm like, I just can't remember the email, but anyways. Okay, so you guys, this is where it goes to. It goes to secretservice.gov.
Get out of here. Are you serious?
Oh, I'd love to be able to find that. So what? Okay.
I can send it to you in text. Can I send it to you?
Yeah,
in
send it
text?
to me in text.
Okay.
I'll send it to myself in email.
Send
Yeah.
it,
so
send it
sorry,
to me too.
guys.
Put it on our
in-
group
yeah.
chat.
I will.
Text.
I will.
That's
Here's the
interesting.
first, and here's the. Not even joking, you guys.
Who
So we
sends
have
you
the
these
div-
things? You can't say.
We had the domestic terrorists that the FBI was going after, and now we've got the Secret Service involved in reporting acts of, racism or homophobia.
12, my friends.
Unbelievable.
Okay, I'm sending this to myself.
And the
so I can
crazy
set it
thing
up.
is, I'm watching people justify it. I'm watching people who will get on and say, well, you can report if a man's in the bathroom, or they don't even say a man. They say you can report if somebody who looks a little different is in your bathroom. And I'm like,
God.
it's just not the same thing. I watched the people with Title IX come in, and they were talking, and it wasn't just about taking this sports scholarship from girls. It's literally grooming our women, because what it's saying is that you should not trust your instinct if someone comes into your bathroom. Period. If they, and because this is Biden's new rule, is that if you in any way identify, you get to use the bathroom of your choice. And we went from 37 words to describe a woman to over 15,000 pages.
Get out.
So, and I don't understand it at all, but yeah. So that's where we're at. And it's,
all right. So I want to share this, and you tell me if I'm looking at the right thing.
You are.
Okay. So what we're looking at here, May 2023, improving school safety through bystander reporting, a toolkit for strengthening K through 12 reporting programs by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, U.S. Secret Service. A message from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the United States Secret Service. And I'll just read, maybe I'll start with the first paragraph here.
Yeah, look at that first paragraph. What do you see in it?
Schools provide the foundation for our nation's success. They play a vital role, not just in student learning, but also in the development of children's social, emotional, and interpersonal skills.
There you go.
Yeah.
SEL.
To ensure the academic success and emotional well-being of all students, schools must foster a safe and nurturing environment where students feel empowered to express their concerns and where student voices are heard. Want me to continue?
That's not woke language.
Yeah.
I mean, You guys, that when they say all, they mean some. I've decided that diversity, equity, and inclusion should be called division, exclusion, and ideology.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I know.
It really
yeah.
is. It sort of nails it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like, when people blew a gasket over the whole domestic terrorists at the school board meetings and the FBI was getting involved, that blew up in their face, essentially. So
Yeah.
this is a different back door that they're trying to use to get to the same place that they failed to get to the first time around.
Oh,
That's how
you
I see
guys.
this.
So yeah, there's so much more. They are inundating our schools with therapists. They're building these huge
Yeah.
mausoleums for schools. Huge,
Huge
brand
what's?
new schools. Mausoleums. So basically they're large enough that they're gonna put health centers in them.
Yeah.
Oh
And
gosh.
I mean, it's exactly what they're doing. They didn't work the first time around. It wasn't, it was too aggressive. So they're taking this backdoor entry point to try to
yeah,
accomplish what they failed to before. And but this is very manipulative because you look at it and it makes it appear as though we're empowering kids to make good and healthy choices. There's no unless you're really savvy and you
Okay.
study DEI and know what it is, there's no way to identify that in any regard that this is actually a negative thing, that this is actually creating a worse problem.
yeah,
And most people don't really know what those three words mean in the
Mhm.
context of the school system
yeah.
specifically, but in general.
Well, I wanted to see where they talk about what they're reporting. And here this says the 5 takeaway strategies for local education agencies to consider as they seek to further encourage and support reporting in their unique environment. And I keep wondering, what is reporting? Because so far they've been really vague about what that is. It's like we're reporting threats and reporting violence. But here it says, number 1, encourage bystanders to report concerns for the wellness and safety of themselves or others. This is super, super vague. And they say, if you're just listening, I'll try to read a little bit of this, but I recommend checking this out. Maybe I can put a link in the description or something. In addition to threats of school violence, promote the reporting of issues that indicate a student is in need of resources or supports, including bullying, which is really, really, really vague, drug use, self-harm, suicidal ideations, and depression, which is also really vague. So, 2, make reporting accessible and safe for the reporting community. 3, follow up on reports and be transparent about the actions taken in response to reported concerns. But 4, look at that, make reporting a part of daily school life.
That's the grooming right there. They want to groom it into you. So it is a repetitive behavior that you are practicing every single day in order to
Yeah.
incorporate that into your psyche and for
Yeah.
that to become second nature. I
Yeah.
mean, that's actually the
Applies
worst
promotional
and most
materials.
scary part. Absolutely.
Develop
They
That's the
have
effective.
to
scariest
put
part.
materials in every single classroom,
Yeah.
and they're very
Make,
colorful, and they're
Yep.
very like you have to see them.
That's what it says here. It says develop effective promotional materials. Make your reporting program easily recognizable as part of your positive school climate. Utilize promotional materials and events throughout the year to remind various audiences about the resources available and the importance of reporting. This is nuts. This is straight
It's
out of
absolutely crazy.
1984.
It's crazy.
It's Soviet.
Wow.
They
It is
want to turn us
Soviet.
into androgynous beings that are
And when
just
you
robotic.
start going through it and you start clicking on the links to it, you just start going,
Oh my gosh.
exactly.
Look at that. It says,
Yes.
and then I'll just read out the 5th one for anybody who's just listening. Create a positive climate where reporting is valued and respected. Build and sustain supportive and trusting student-staff relationships. Help students view adults in the school as trusted individuals. When applicable, foster trusting relationships between student populations and school-based law enforcement or school resource officers. Strive for a climate where people of all backgrounds feel secure, important, and valued. This sounds like, am I reading
like
between the lines? But it
No, it
sounds like
sounds
they're
like
going
the
to be reporting their
Nazi.
families.
It's the Nazi regime. That's what's happening. This is
Wow.
right? Report your
Yeah.
neighbor, report your whomever, your family member,
And
even.
as soon as you
That's
say
exactly
Nazi,
what it
people check
is.
out. So
I get it.
I say Mao,
Mhm,
Mao
mhm.
or Stalinism, the same thing. People were afraid to say the wrong thing because they could be reported and the next day they lose their home and their neighbor has a nicer house.
Okay.
I learned about this because a nemesis made a presentation and said that this app was the best tool for anti-racism action.
Whoa.
So
this is where you report people for their language or for
Yeah.
microaggressions.
yeah,
Microaggressions, right?
Yeesh. Well, so excuse me. They talk about the first line here in their section on context says the success of school violence prevention requires systems and processes that can identify individuals at risk and intervene effectively, which is like, on the one hand, if you, when my girls were still in school and they're in their mid to late 20s now, so this is a while back, this is over a decade ago, they were doing active shooter drills in schools, which I really didn't
Yeah.
like. This was something I didn't like. I thought, you're terrifying these poor kids, and I don't think these drills are really that helpful. And
Right.
what a atmosphere to be in, talking about active shooters in school. This really bothered me. They would do
Well, what about
do campus lockdown drills too.
Yes.
What about up before, where they were talking about regular presentations?
What do you mean?
So earlier they were saying have regular presentations.
Oh,
like
right.
Annually or whatever, right?
Right.
So these presentations are not presentations to inspire and to bring you to a better place. They're always, every single time, they
To
tend
scare
to
you.
be gender and suicide.
Yeah.
Those are the focuses.
Right.
People didn't affirm me, I would commit suicide.
Mhm.
That's what they're saying
Mhm.
over and over and over again.
Right, which makes your microaggression an act of literal violence, because what you're doing is you're trying to get somebody to hurt themselves. You're trying to
Yes.
encourage real harm to someone in this way
And
of
what
thinking.
happened to teaching about resilience and the fact
Oh,
that
you
everybody's
guys-
not going to like you and you're not going to like everybody, and this is how you have to learn to be in the world. We have weakened these children and people in general, that we can't, that they're not learning skills of how to be in a relationship and deal with a conflict.
Mhm.
Just a simple skill as that. No, go turn around and report them so that whomever
Yes.
can come along and punish you. And at that point, then you become, afraid to say anything out loud for fear of being, retaliated against.
So
Well,
that other thing, oh, go ahead.
Okay. So I was going to say about this violence prevention thing, if we are thinking in terms of, we've had some really dramatic and horrific scenes of violence on school campuses, not very many, thankfully, but there have been too many instances where somebody comes in and does something really harmful. And so from that perspective, this makes a little bit of sense to me. It makes a little bit of sense that we're going to try, how do we prevent that from happening? How do we be more vigilant when you've got kids that are really going off the rails? Maybe they've been making threats, maybe they've been saying things that are really, really alarming, but we haven't had a system for helping to intervene before it gets out of hand. So I'm trying to sort of steelman this issue and see where they could be coming from on this. So from that perspective,
why does it need to go straight to the Secret Service? Why wouldn't it start off at a local level?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And and I remember when I was at Share, that was the letter that we wrote back. It was, we have full faith in our local authorities to handle any kind of conflict that may show up without requiring the FBI to get involved. So that's 100%. It's going to, you have to look at where it's going to and which group is getting these complaints and what they decide is important and what they decide isn't. These are other human beings with their own set of, corrupted ideas and thoughts and who knows what, that are making those decisions. That is terrifying. And anybody who is not afraid of this isn't paying attention. They're not awake.
How much control does the federal government have over public schools, and how much are they in the state control, Cari?
Well, they give money. They give a lot of money to the public schools, right?
We have a full district that's ran by the Department of Justice.
Oh, wow.
Because a Black child committed suicide. It's questionable on the story. There's a narrative, and then there's what the investigation shows. But they said that it was because of racism, so they brought in the entire Department of Justice. Now,
this is what they don't understand. Children's suicides, right? I worked with kids for a good period of time, and there is evidence that show that a majority, and I've heard the figure 90%. I'm not going to say that because I don't know with full confidence that it's really that high. However, much higher, that they end their own lives over circumstances that will change, things that are not permanent, not necessarily a mental health problem, but circumstances that are very upsetting, but will change. When you actually work with a kid and say, okay, let's talk about, learning, maybe you wouldn't say this directly in this fashion, but the idea is that you would bring this idea of resilience into the room. And how do you teach people to be able to, tolerate, not tolerate or accept, but understand there's adversity, understand what you can control and what you can't control, and understand how you can make positive, move in your life by having reasonable conflict resolution conversations. That's the thing, is it's dismantling that entire way of teaching kids how to become adults. We have a lot of adults that are going to be running around that are snowflakes, for lack of a better word, who are going to be making decisions for our health, our well-being, our mental health, everything. This is who the next generation is that's coming up, that's going to be in positions of power. Do you all want somebody that's been through something like this and is reporting you to the Department of Homeland Security to be your boss? I don't think so, but that's where it's going.
So here's the thing, because I know that you're running out of time, but you have to look at what resilience means now. So as we say, let's teach resilience, they've co-opted the word. Just like I use in my campaign, I believe in human flourishing. They've co-opted these words.
Yeah.
But resilience
Yeah.
is not what people think it means. The other thing that I sent you was about was the UNESCO's need for SEL to create dissonance in our kids. And the resilience is that they can sit with things that don't make any sense to them and accept them. And after they've gone through the process, basically breaking them, after they've gone through the process, they will be less likely to struggle through it anymore. So I do think that there are people who believe that adopting these ideas as kids are young are better than putting them through it later on in life. Like if you're just training the child from the beginning to accept ideas that make no sense, then maybe that's a kinder thing than a struggle session as they get older.
Well, I just want to cap this off here so that we can move on, because you had a couple of other pieces to share, Cari.
Yeah.
This is really disturbing. I hope I can put a link to this in the description so people can go through this themselves. What's really interesting here is they're talking about basically that same point that we were making a little bit ago. Here, there's in a 2021 study titled "Averting Targeted School Violence, a U.S. Secret Service Analysis of Plots Against Schools," which sounds like we're talking about foreign governments plotting against schools. But really, when you read on, it says U.S. Secret Service found that targeted school violence is preventable when communities report concerning behaviors and intervene. In addition to making threats of violence, many plotters had histories of mental health symptoms, substance use, bullying, stressors, and interpersonal grievances. And then it says something in 2/3 of attacks, there was at least one communication or other concerning behavior by the attacker about his or her intent to attack that was not reported by the bystander who observed it. And they're talking about changing the school climate so that bystanders come forward with information related to the threats. So this is what's so disturbing to me about this, is that right here, at least one communication about his or her intent to attack. That's relevant, I think. So if the person is communicating about a plan to do something like, I'm going to XYZ, and then they do, you find that these students talked about this before they came in and did this horrible thing. Well, that makes a lot of sense. We do need to take things like that more seriously, perhaps. Maybe that's an argument that could be made. But when they say "or concerning behavior," that's incredibly vague. This goes back to like this pre-crime. We're going to start treating things that we see that are concerning. Like this is getting into microaggression territory. What is concerning behavior? That's really, really vague, and it's really subjective. And what this all amounts to is we've done a U.S. Secret Service's service analysis of plots against schools. We're going technocratic to analyze and turn into data and aggregates these issues that really essentially involve a lack of humanity and a lack of interpersonal connection. So if instead of treating
Yes.
people like ones and zeros and acting like we can technologize our way out of the spirals of emotional despair that lead people to do terrible things, why not just treat people more like people? Why not stop being some big brother agency and start actually encouraging people to make real connections?
Because it's not their intent, and it doesn't serve their political agenda.
Right.
Those are the reasons.
Yeah.
That it all comes back down to that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't virtue signal, which is basically a dopamine.
Right.
People feel really, really good when they can say that they're the good people and other people are the bad people.
Oh, wow. Look at this. This is so interesting here too. This is the factors. This is the summary of factors influencing student willingness to report and again, report other people for anything that seems concerning, whatever that might mean. Student level. So awareness of security measures. So if you have a security atmosphere, climate, then you're more steeped in it and you're more a part of that system. Relationships with school and staff. Students with positive relationships with one or more adult at the school are more likely to report. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you really do have a genuinely good relationship with somebody, then you're going to talk to them more. But if we're grooming kids out there in order to develop these relationships, in order to solicit information from them, then that sounds really creepy. Performance.
We had a situation at school where a kid said, one kid stood up and said, "I love being gay. Everyone should be gay. It's awesome. It's amazing." And another kid said, "I disagree." The kid who said I disagree was reported for making the other kid feel uncomfortable. This kid had never been in trouble before, and they had to sign a thing that said they are a bully.
So what if a kid had stood up? What if a kid stood up and said, "I love being straight. Everybody should be straight"? What would that have been?
Make someone feel uncomfortable.
Well, that's not homophobia right there. That's
Is it even if you're just talking about yourself? What about heterophobia? Why wasn't the first kids?
Because we're not centering
around.
Good point. Where remember, it always comes down to centering around some at the expense of others.
Look at this, the collective identity. Oops, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Schools with strong collective identities encourage reporting. This was a thing I didn't know where this was coming from, but in my graduate education, there was so much focus on collectivism being what we should embrace. We Westerners are too individualistic, and that was part of whiteness, and that was something to not be, we wanted to move away from it. We want to be more collective, but collective to what? The government? Anyway.
Yes.
There's a lot here. This is really disturbing. Thank you for sharing it. And if you guys, if you're looking, take a note of the URL, but I'll try to post this in the description as well. Do you want me to share the other thing, Cari?
Well, you have a meeting, so
I have a meeting in about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So we can finish it up if you want.
So this is the UEA's page. This is the UEA's most recent letter, the UEA, Utah Education Association.
This thing here?
It's the same as the NEA. Yeah, that one.
Which one?
Go to the one before it, or the middle one. This one, lead.
Okay, lead.
So this is their summer school for teachers. So it says policies, practices, and facing resistance. Explore strategies to promote. Can you go to the one above it?
Oh, yeah.
To promote inclusivity and overcome resistance to implementing progressive educational policies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Literally to overcome
resistance to progressive policies.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They're really saying the quiet part out loud.
They are. And then their book study, Teachers Unions and Social Justice. This course will explore how teachers unions can be pivotal in advocating for social justice.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So,
and we know what social justice means.
I call it social injustice. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then that last thing is probably for another day, but this talks about resilience. If you'll pull it up really quickly.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. You can't teach that, teaching controversial topics in the classroom.
Yeah.
Learn techniques for effectively handling sensitive or controversial topics in educational settings. Basically, get around the taboos and make sure you keep pushing that progressive policy.
I'm telling you, we all need to start wearing the pigtails that I'm wearing right now because we are.
What does that mean? What is the pigtail?
They're the resistance.
I didn't.
We gotta
What?
wear Leia pigtails.
Oh, Leia pigtails. Oh my gosh. I'll just look weird. I'm a 47-year-old woman in pigtails.
No one. So I don't care. I'm like, this is our, they used to draw the fish in the sand. Tells to start wearing them.
I like your resistance hair. I'll
Fish in
consider
the
it.
sand. Yes.
Okay.
So look at this. This is from UNESCO. And what it's about, maybe another day, but this is about this is why
SEL,
social and emotional learning,
Mhm.
is useful for creating the SDGs. In fact, it's essential. So remember, this is little kids. We're supposed to create dissonance and unpleasant. The averse arousal state is because inconsistent cognitions impede effective and unconflicted action. The unpleasant emotive state of dissonance motivates attitude changes. So we're intentionally making our children
Motivates
struggle.
attitude changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or engagements.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or engagement in other dissonance reduction processes. Hence, with encounters with dissonance, trigger a variety of dissonance reducing cognitions, attitudes, and behaviors that align cognitions with behavioral commitments to facilitate the execution of effective, what is that? Unconflicting. I can't read it.
I don't know, but it's from UNESCO, and it flat out says,
Wow.
our goal is to break your children and to get them to be more obedient and more accepting.
And
It
to
talks
motivate
about the
attitude
SDGs
changes.
and says, some of them are going to seem like they're really hard to swallow, but when you compare them with this, it's just,
We need to pull kids out of schools. Yeah.
but I mean, I have this thing where I am actually sending my son back to school next year. But we have a revolving door. I just, for us with an only child, it just comes down to the social. But our revolving door is this: if you get in and it's a whole crazy show, you walk right back out and we're done. But this way I have that compromise with my husband that, we want him to have social interactions. We want him to experience those things.
Ugh,
but
it's
not
so hard. We need alternative social networks
We
for
do.
children in person. I mean, we have a really good homeschool group. I keep recommending that people try to build something like that. But
Yeah.
I know that it's not like you can remove your children from the time that they live in. They live in this era. This is the time. These are the people. This is their cohort.
Yeah.
They're going to grow up among them. So they need to know how to live in this environment. But
we can't expect them to be a light. A lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of religious people will say, I'm sending them to be a light. No,
they're going to be
you
absorbed
have
into
to
it.
send them prepared that they know what's going on, that they hold the truth in their heart.
Mhm.
And hopefully more people will be drawn to them. But I'm worried.
Mhm.
My son
Yeah.
wears shirts that say, like, not today, Kami. Is that going to be harm? Is it going to be the kind of harm that gets him reported on
Maybe.
for wearing a t-shirt?
Yeah.
He would get reported on that. Under these new draconian measures, he would be reported based on that. That's where we become just
So we
these
might last a week.
androgynous soulless robots.
We
Well,
might last a week, but if that's the case, maybe we'll pull some out with us,
Yeah.
So
well, there's so much more to say about all of this. I have to go now, but where can people find you guys? Do you want to, Christine, you want to tell people where they can find you online?
Oh, criticaltherapyantidote.org.
Okay. And the CTA podcast is excellent.
Thank you. Yes.
All right.
I am sending
Cari?
people there regularly. Mine is Carob Marcelle. But there's nothing new. After next week, it'll be back. But right now it's just campaign for another week. So
What if
if
people
anyone
want to
is
find
so-
your campaign?
yeah, if anybody is so inclined, the Utah County Republican Party is doing a matching. So if anybody
Mhm.
wants to donate, they can donate at www.carry4utkids.com. We only have a week to go, so I really, really appreciate good thoughts, good vibes, and let's protect our kids.
Absolutely. Carrie, will you send me anything you want me to put in the description? I'll put a link to that
Sure.
in the description so people can find it. And
Sure.
thank you both. I really love talking with you both. You're doing good work,
too.
and good luck, Carrie.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye-bye.